Have you ever felt like you were competing for attention? As if every ignored message, every cold response was silent proof that you're not worth enough? Don't worry, you're not alone. Millions of men live this reality without realizing the brutal truth of all. The problem has never been that women are difficult. The problem is that you're not the right man. Sounds harsh? Perfect. Because it's with this harshness that reality begins to change. The world isn't fair, and it wasn't meant to be. In the realm of attraction, perceived value is the most valuable currency. And here's an uncomfortable truth. The woman who ignores you today might be throwing herself into the arms of another man without him having done anything more than exist. And no, she's not fickle. She's simply following the silent programming of biology, seeking the best available option. You may not like it, you may even resist it, but everything you resist persists. And more, everything you deny dominates you. From the moment you understand that the game is played on an invisible level, a level where words, flowers, and persistence are worth less than posture, presence, and perceived value, you begin to leave the line of the rejected and enter the arena of the desired. Most of the advice you've heard about conquering a woman is nothing more than traps disguised as romanticism. Phrases like, "Whoever loves cares," "Go after what you want," "Persistence conquers all," may even work in soap operas. But in the brutal reality of sexual selection, this puts you in second place trying to reach someone who has already chosen someone else. Because the woman who truly desires you doesn't make you chase after her, she creates the path to you. But calm down, this is not a death sentence. It's an invitation to transformation. There is a science behind attraction. There is a method. There's a complete reconfiguration of perception, identity, and behavior that can indeed turn any man into a social magnet, the kind of presence that silences a room without needing to shout. And it all starts with an internal repositioning. Stop trying to conquer women and start building a life that conquers them effortlessly. True seduction doesn't come from performance. It comes from value. And value isn't what you say you have. It's what people perceive you to be. Value is a silent language. That's why you can say everything right and still be ignored, while another guy, silent, receives total attention. Because women don't listen to your words, they listen to your energy. She's not difficult, she simply doesn't see you. This is the truth that most men prefer to bury in excuses rather than face with courage. Saying that women are complicated has become a cowardly way to avoid a deep analysis of their own worth. But the brutality of adult life is that no one will tell you this outright. Most will console you with phrases like, "It wasn't the right time yet," "She doesn't deserve you," "You need to try harder," as if seduction were a marathon and not an immediate choice. But the reality is simple. The moment she sees you, she has already decided if you are an option or a distraction. Evolutionary psychology explains this with disturbing clarity. For thousands of years, the female survival instinct has been shaped to identify the man most capable of protecting her and ensuring good genes for her descendants. This was never just about looks, it was about posture, social dominance, decision-making ability, resources, and above all, magnetism. This biological radar still exists, and it's activated in milliseconds. The problem? He's not on your side if you still need to prove you're worthy of her. Because the clearest proof that you're not is the fact that you're trying. Every time a man tries to convince a woman that he deserves a chance, he's already acting like someone who's less valuable. Effort, in this context, isn't praiseworthy. It's pathetic. It's the silent cry of someone who already knows that, alone, he's not enough. And the worst part? The woman feels it. Not with words, but with the language she understands best, energy. The body speaks, the eyes betray, the tone gives it away. A slight gesture of hesitation, a forced attempt to appear confident, a nervous laugh. All of this activates the same defense instinct that a wild animal recognizes in wounded prey. And ironically, you become even less interesting precisely because you're trying to be interesting. But what about that old saying, women like men who chase after them? Forget it. That's an urban legend, fueled by movie scripts and men who never understood how the female mind works. When a woman finds a man she truly desires, she doesn't impose tests, doesn't play games, doesn't make it difficult to get closer. On the contrary, she makes it easy. She creates space, makes opportunities, responds quickly, smiles more, touches subtly. She shows interest without saying a word. Because when the desire is genuine, the connection happens almost effortlessly. And if that's not happening with you, it's because she's already decided. You're not the guy. You may not like this, you may even rebel, but you'll continue playing the game with the wrong rules until you understand the basic principle. Seduction isn't a battle, it's recognition. You don't need to conquer, you need to be identified as that guy. The man she looks at and immediately knows, he's the one I want. And if that recognition doesn't happen, nothing you do afterward will change that. Because attraction isn't built with arguments, it's activated with presence. And the cruelest part is that, often, you're losing to someone who isn't even trying. While you're thinking about the perfect phrase, the ideal moment, the right way to approach, she's flirting with a guy who didn't even ask permission to exist. He was simply there, aligned, firm, relaxed, with a look that didn't ask, only observed. This kind of presence is almost mystical. And that's why so many men try to imitate it, but few succeed. Because it doesn't come from technique. It comes from the internal recognition of value. It's the result of a man who is no longer in the approval game. He has already approved himself. Robert Greene, author of The Art of Seduction, masterfully explains this. For him, the true seducer doesn't strive to be desired. He becomes desirable by understanding what captivates and intrigues the human mind. And what captivates most? Mystery. Emotional control. The silent confidence of someone who doesn't need to shout to be noticed. Greene claims that victims of seduction give in because they want to experience the pleasure of losing control. But how can someone lose control for you if you don't even know who you are? Have you ever noticed how women are attracted to men they can't read? It's no coincidence. The female mind is driven by emotional stimulation, not logic. And a man who gives everything away, who explains himself, who justifies himself, who seeks approval, doesn't provoke any emotion. He's boring, he's too confident, too obvious, too available. And desire, my friend, thrives on the unpredictable. Predictability is the poison of attraction. Therefore, the first major turning point is understanding. You weren't rejected. You were ignored. And there's a brutal difference in that. Rejection implies that you had the chance to be considered, and yet you were discarded. Ignored means you were never even perceived as an option. And that's the reality for many men. They don't lose to others. They don't even enter the competition. Because their value is below the female radar. But how to change that? How to become visible? The answer lies far from ready-made phrases and close to a complete overhaul of your lifestyle. Visibility doesn't come from what you say. It comes from what you represent. It's the invisible set of factors that creates the image of a man who deserves to be desired. Your body language, your aura of purpose, your ability to have fun without needing to prove anything, your calmness in the face of rejection, your silence that weighs more than words. All of this forms the unspoken value, and that's what women feel even before you introduce yourself. Stop chasing. Start building presence. Presence isn't about being there. It's about being impossible to ignore. It's about entering a room and without realizing it, causing eyes to turn. Not because you're shouting for attention, but because you're carrying an energy that commands respect and curiosity. That's what differentiates those who observe from the stage from those who are applauded. And yes, this change requires work. It requires a painful deconstruction of old beliefs. It requires stopping seeing yourself as the unlucky loser and starting to see yourself as the man who defines his own worth. Don't expect a woman to see in you something that you don't even recognize in yourself. The world doesn't reward victims. It bows to those who take control. And the first step is this. Stop thinking she's difficult and start accepting that you're invisible because you don't yet have what she's looking for. And this realization changes everything. Because when you understand that the problem isn't her, but rather the fact that you haven't yet become the man she wants, the responsibility shifts. It moves from frustration to power. You stop insisting on specific women and start building a life where specific women seek you out. The game reverses. And that's where true seduction begins. Not the seduction of convincing someone, but the seduction of becoming someone who doesn't need convincing. Desperate effort is a silent confession that you're not the one. That phrase alone should be enough to bury the whole charade of persistent conquest. But still, most men persist. They drag themselves through one-sided conversations, humiliate themselves in interactions where only they are interested, and nurture an empty hope that if they are good enough, present enough, or persistent enough, she will eventually give in. But that's not romance. It's illusion. And worse, it's an illusion that costs dearly. It costs your energy, your self-esteem, and the perception of value you project to the world. Let's get straight to the point. The more you try to prove yourself, the less valuable you become in her eyes, because the proof should never come from you. The man who is desired doesn't need to present arguments. He is the argument itself. And this is something that is almost instinctively ingrained in the female mind. From an early age, women learn that the most valuable men are those who don't chase after everything that comes along. These are the ones who select, who choose with discernment, who don't seem desperate for approval. Therefore, when you start chasing after them, justifying yourself, showing everything you have to offer, you're not being admirable, you're being predictable. And predictability, in the game of attraction, is almost a sign of weakness. Imagine this: a luxury product, a rare, desired, valued item. It's never on sale. It doesn't need noisy advertisements, flyers at traffic lights, or insistent sales pitches. It's there, untouched, silent. And yet, the elite seek it out, because its value lies in what it represents, not in what it says about itself. Now, contrast that with a common, cheap, off-the-shelf product screaming sale on every corner. Which one do you think is more sought after? The same applies to you. When you position yourself as a man who needs to convince a woman to stay, you automatically lower yourself. And the worst part? She senses it, even if not consciously. Excessive effort has a smell of insecurity, of neediness, of scarcity, and this awakens in a woman the opposite of attraction: compassion. And compassion, in this game, is the kiss of death. Therefore, stop asking yourself how to win her over. Start asking yourself, why do I still feel like I need to prove something? This is the point where your mind begins to break free from the vicious cycle of external validation. You are not here to deserve someone. You are here to choose with whom you share what you already are. But as long as you act like a man who needs to please to be noticed, all you will achieve is being tolerated. And being tolerated is the antithesis of desire. And the worst part? This pattern is reinforced by a sick culture that idolizes the nice guy, the guy who does everything for her, the old-fashioned romantic who sends flowers, declares his love by text message, and insists even when she ignores him. But do you want to know what this generates? A lot of frustrated and emotionally broken men think they're being rejected for being too good. But that's not it. They're not being rejected for their goodness. They're being rejected for their weakness. Because deep down, all that romantic performance is just a disguised attempt to buy attention through effort. And here's a crucial point. It's not that effort itself is bad. Effort, when applied in the right place, to your career, your body, your habits, your vision for the future, is virtuous. But when it's directed towards winning over a woman who doesn't even notice you, it becomes a symptom of disorientation. And this disorientation is perceived as a lack of leadership, a lack of clarity, a lack of masculine energy. And without these three things, you can be cute, kind, attentive, but you'll never be irresistible. Do you see the difference? The problem isn't being nice, it's being too nice for someone who didn't choose you. Because when you offer your best to someone who doesn't want you, you're not being generous. You're being reckless. You're pouring value into someone who doesn't recognize it. And that's self-sabotage. The psychologist Carl Jung said that what you resist persists. And by resisting your fear of rejection, you sabotage yourself, trying to avoid that fear at any cost, including the cost of your dignity. In this sense, insistence is the denial of self-respect. It's the childish attempt to reverse a choice that wasn't in your favor, as if you could convince someone to feel what they don't feel. But desire is not debatable. It's instinctive, emotional, visceral. You don't teach someone to want you, you naturally become someone they want. And this process begins when you stop trying. From the moment you shift the focus from them to yourself, something changes. You begin to project a different energy, an energy of presence, of purpose, of scarcity. And scarcity is one of the most powerful weapons of seduction. The man who isn't always available, who has a clear purpose, who selects intelligently, becomes magnetic, because everything that is rare is valuable, and everything that is common is forgotten. This is where the idea of strategic detachment comes in. It's not about being cold or indifferent. It's about stopping putting your energy where it's not valued. It's about looking at an interaction and saying, if there's no reciprocity, I won't insist. That in itself already puts you on a different level, because it shows that you have options, that you have criteria, that you prioritize yourself. And that's irresistible, much more so than any well-written text or expensive gift. And here's another trap: emotional juggling. The man who isn't the one tries to replace value with technique. He wants to know the right phrase, the right tone, the right emoji, the ideal sequence of messages to unlock her interest. But this kind of mentality is pathetic, because it doesn't stem from confidence, it stems from fear. Fear of making mistakes, fear of being ignored, fear of not being enough. And as a result, this man becomes a caricature, an illusionist trying to hide his own insecurity with emotional magic. But she sees it. She always sees it. And once she sees you as someone who needs tricks to get attention, the game is over. Therefore, the new mindset needs to be, I don't make an effort to conquer. I channel my effort into becoming. And this becoming is what truly attracts. Becoming someone with vision, with routine, with influence, with emotional clarity, with social magnetism. A man who has so much inherent value that he doesn't even consider pursuing someone who doesn't see it. That's the man a woman desires. Not because he pursued her, but because she felt that by his side she would be elevated. And this is another crucial point. Women don't just seek emotional security. They seek elevation. To feel they are with someone who lifts them up, who expands their perception of the world, who leads the relationship with clarity. And this kind of energy only arises when you stop begging for attention and start choosing who is truly worth connecting with. The game has changed. Or rather, the game has always been the same. What has changed is your awareness of it. Because now that you understand that too much effort reveals insecurity, that chasing after someone is a form of self-abandonment, and that a difficult woman is actually just a disinterested woman, you are ready for the final twist. And it's simple, yet brutal. Become the prize, and let her play. Yes, that's right. The new rule isn't about chasing after her, nor about manipulating her, nor about feigning disinterest. The new rule is transform yourself into the emotional, aesthetic, intellectual, and spiritual reward she seeks. Because women don't cling to what is pretty, convenient, or insistent. They cling to what elevates them. They cling to the man they know others desire, but few have access to. To the man whose presence is rare, whose energy is magnetic, whose mind is dangerous, in the best sense of the word. But here's the detail many don't understand. Becoming the prize isn't arrogance. It's about consistency. It's not about being conceited. It's about becoming undeniable. It's not about seeming better than others. It's about being so focused, so disciplined, so interesting, so sharp, that you naturally become the exception amidst the crowd of generic men. And that only happens when you reverse the focus. When you stop thinking about how to please women and start thinking about how to become the man they beg to please. The difference is subtle, but brutal. And it starts with a concept we've already mentioned, but now let's delve deeper. SMV, sexual market value. SMV is everything you represent in the attraction market. Your appearance, your body language, your social standing, your lifestyle, your confidence, your scarcity, your network. Your ability to evoke emotion, your culture, your spirituality, your discipline, and above all, your capacity to offer a rare emotional experience. Because at the end of the day, women don't want a walking resume. They want what you represent emotionally. They crave the feeling of being with someone who provides security, presence, status, and challenge. Someone who takes them out of autopilot, who demands the best version of themselves, who doesn't accept less. And this isn't guru talk. It's biological, historical, and social reality. In practice, this means the following. You don't need to be rich, but you need to be ambitious. You don't need to be the most handsome, but you need to be aesthetically respectable. You don't need to have thousands of followers, but you need to be an influential man in your context. You need to have something to offer. You need to have a life so well built that being with you represents an ascension for her, not a demotion. The man who lives to please, to be accepted, to mold himself to female desires, ends up becoming predictable, manipulable, and easily disposable. But the man who lives according to his own purpose, who knows where he's going, who filters who he shares his energy with, that man becomes a reference point. That man is desired. And often, that man doesn't even notice when a woman is giving signals because he's so focused on his own journey that he's not waiting for approval. And it's at this point that a curious paradox arises. The less you need female approval, the easier it comes. Because you're not competing, you're not forcing, you're not selling yourself, you're building. And the woman observes, silently, attentive. Because her instinct senses that you are the rare type of man, the type who doesn't mix, who doesn't beg, who doesn't accept less. And that's exactly why she wants to be chosen by you. This is the new rule of the game. They still choose, but only among the men who are already prizes. And if you're still trying to be chosen by a woman who lives in constant validation, who has 1,000 options and little discernment, it's because you haven't yet realized your own power. A man who recognizes himself as a prize never begs for attention. He observes, he selects, he tests before giving himself. Because he knows what he can offer, and therefore he doesn't give his worth to just anyone. He's not in a hurry, because he understands that the right woman isn't the one who just says she's different, but the one who proves it through attitude, posture, reciprocity, and vision of life. And when you assume this inner place, when you stop being the hunter and become the prize, something magical happens. Interactions change, messages are answered faster, their gaze changes. The initiative comes from them. Respect increases, desire intensifies. Because now they feel they are facing a man who can be lost, and everything that can be lost is more desirable. That's the power of emotional scarcity. You're not always available. You don't respond immediately. You don't reveal everything at once. You don't give yourself to just anyone. And most importantly, you don't negotiate your worth for sex, attention, or companionship. This automatically puts you on a higher level. Because men like that are rare. And everything that is rare is valued. And that's why so many men have mediocre results with women, because their lives are mediocre. Empty routines, repetitive thoughts, automatic habits, lack of real ambition. And the woman feels it. She senses when you have nothing left to offer besides desire. And she loses interest. Because desire alone isn't enough. What holds her is the emotional value you represent. Now stop for a second and think, what kind of man would the woman you desire most want to date? Think about her. Visualize her. Is she beautiful, sensual, intelligent, feminine, educated? Does she have many men after her? Great. Now ask yourself, would she choose a man like you or someone better? This question, however painful it may seem, is the only one that matters. Because it forces you to look in the mirror and recognize if you are the guy that all women want or the one they hope will be chosen. And the answer to this question changes everything. Because if you're honest, it will expose all the areas you still need to improve. It will show you where your weakness lies. And what's more, it will show you the way. Because if you already know the type of man she wants, all you have to do is become that man. And the most beautiful thing about all this is that when you transform into that man, you realize that maybe you don't even want that woman anymore. Because now, you have options. Now you know your worth. Now, you no longer need to cling to the first woman who smiled at you, because you understand that true seduction begins when you no longer depend on anyone's approval. You're here because you already know the truth. Being the good guy didn't make you desired. Being kind brought comfort, not attraction. Being stable made you safe, not unforgettable. And comfort without tension never creates desire. Now you're at a crossroads. You either keep trying to earn attraction by being passive, or you learn how desire is actually triggered through presence, influence, and controlled tension. That's exactly why the Forbidden Manual, How to Trigger Desire in 60 Seconds, exists. This audiobook is not self-help. It's a direct psychological manual that shows how desire is activated in real time through posture, silence, eye contact, and strategic communication. You'll learn why most words fail, how to create emotional tension in under a minute, and how to leave a lasting impression without forcing anything. This isn't theory. It's practical, immediate, and unapologetically real. What's inside isn't politically correct, but it works. That's why it's forbidden. If you're tired of being overlooked, tired of doing everything right and getting nothing back, this is the shift. Attraction stops being about pleasing and starts being about provoking. Click the button, access the full audiobook, and become the kind of man who doesn't chase attention, but makes it inevitable.